So we possibly got the worst news that we've ever gotten, guys. And we're reaching out to our podcast community for prayers. I walked in today to the podcast studio and Jasmine shared some news with me. Jasmine, I don't even think I can say it. Can you say it?
So, unfortunately, in the United States, there is a shortage of
Topo Chico. Oh, no.
and it won't come back until like July.
Oh, my gosh.
So you better stock up.
I'm going to be getting on eBay, trying to buy stockpiles of Topo Chico.
Maybe that's why this week when I ordered some raspberry for the house, they substituted orange. And orange is the only flavor that I don't like.
I like
But
it.
you like it.
It's actually tangerine.
Whatever.
Topo Chico. And let me just say that the shortage is probably because of all the promotion that we're giving
It
them.
probably is.
Absolutely
We did
for
this. Doing life together. Doing life together nation.
free. Yeah.
Consumed all the Topo Chico.
So I would like to do a toast to Topo Chico. Cheers. Topo Chico. We're going to miss you during this time
Oh,
away.
we're stocking up. So maybe we won't miss you. But
During this time away, if you want to spend this extra time to call us to get that sponsorship set up, it's long overdue.
that's right. I mean, you can't produce it anyway because you don't have the soda water, right? So
Right.
yeah, give us a call.
Oh, was that the issue? They don't have soda water?
Is that what it is, Jess?
I thought I read something like something was wrong with Mexico's water or something.
There's
Well, there's lots of things wrong with Mexico's water, but
wow.
I think that was the cause.
Okay. All right. Well, today on the Doing Life Together podcast, we are going to jump to a Zoom interview that we did with Dr. Yami from Yakima, Washington. And she's a nutritionist and pediatrician. And I'm going to share some our conversation was so good, wasn't it?
yes, it was so good.
I want to let you know that we're not really good at the Zoom thing. So if there's some weird stuff, like we're not looking at the right camera, that's absolutely true.
It happens.
Also-
There's a couple weird pauses because the screen froze.
Yeah. So just hang with it. If you're just doing audio, know that if there's a little pause, it's going to come back super quick, but you get the gist of everything that's being talked about and really, really super good information.
So good.
And so guys, let's just jump right into our interview we had with Dr. Yami. Hey guys, well, we're here today and we have a very interesting topic today. We're going to talk about the relationship between nutrition and your mental health. And as you guys know, we are um, we're very invested in mental health and total health. And so that doesn't just include your mental health, but it also includes your physical health. But those two things are connected. And since it's something that we don't know a ton about, today we have on a guest, and I'm not going to attempt to say your name. I'd like you to say it first, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Well, Jason and Tiffany, thank you so much for having me today. It's really an honor and a pleasure. And I hope that I'm able to bring some good, valuable information to your audience because this is something that I'm very passionate about. So my name is Dr. Yamilet Casorla Lancaster, but I go by Dr. Yami, just like mommy, super simple. I'm a board certified pediatrician. I've been practicing pediatrics for 17 years, but I'm also board certified in lifestyle medicine, which evidence-based branch of medicine that uses habits and behaviors, not just to prevent, but potentially reverse chronic conditions, including mental health issues as well. So I am very happy to talk about this topic today.
Yeah, well, we're really excited. And you are in Yakima, Washington. Is that right?
Yes, Yakima, correct.
Yakima. I say it wrong
So
every
close.
time. I know, and obviously my sister lives there, which is a connection that we have, and but I still say it wrong every time. So anyway, you're
It
originally
happens.
from Yakima?
No, actually, I was born in Panama, so I'm Latin American. I'm bilingual in English and Spanish. And I finished all of my education in Texas. So my primary, secondary, college, medical school, and then went to Cincinnati, Ohio for residency. And after graduating residency, I've been in Yakima ever since. So it's been 17 years here in Yakima.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Um, so I think maybe just jumping right into the topic, maybe give just an overview, like a flyover, and then we can dig into it a little bit, about how your eating habits, even your exercise habits, affect your mental health, and then we'll just jump into it and see what happens from there.
Okay, great. Well, I think what's important for people to understand is that your brain is connected to the rest of your body. And the way that we feel emotionally is tied to our health as well. Obviously, it can be influenced by our thoughts and our circumstances, but a lot of times that's even further influenced by the lifestyle habits and choices that we make. So, we really do have a lot more control than we think over how we feel. And I think that that starts with the simple day to day habits that we can choose to try to be consistent in. I know it's easier said than done, that can really support good mental health. And in lifestyle medicine, it's based on 6 pillars. So that's going to be nutrition, which is primarily whole food nutrition, a diet that's high in plants as well, so that you can get the fiber, the antioxidants, all those nutrients, good vitamins and minerals. The second one is going to be joyful movement, or making sure that you're getting plenty of exercise. The next is going to be restorative sleep, making sure that we're not only sleeping enough, but when we are sleeping, it's good quality sleep. We also want to make sure that we are being consistent with stress management techniques, because what I like to say is we're all exposed to stress, even from when we're children. And we're not necessarily going to be able to change the circumstances. As y'all know, things in the world just happen. It's beyond our control. So we need to find ways to manage our stress. The next one is going to be healthy connections, love, purpose, connecting with people that you love, spending time with those people, having good quality relationships. And then the last one is going to be avoidance of risky substances. And this is a big one, because especially if you're not choosing the right foods, you're not managing your stress, you feel tired, you feel like everything's out of your control, what a lot of people do is that they resort to using substances to try to affect their emotions, which creates a vicious cycle. And then they're feeling worse. And sometimes it's hard to connect it back to, well, it's the alcohol or it's the marijuana that's actually continuing that cycle. So that's the overview of all of the habits and behaviors we want to try to integrate into our lives on a consistent basis. And that really helps support good mental health. Now, this isn't to say you're just going to feel perfect all the time, but hopefully, if you're able to get to a point where you're doing these habits on a regular basis, it's going to keep your hormones regulated and balanced. You're going to feel good metabolically, and that metabolic health is going to support good mental health.
So one of the things that we encourage our audience and our church, to do is, we have a total health challenge, and this is mind, body, soul, relationship, all of the above. And I think that's really, kind of connecting it to something our audience is familiar with, is taking those moments each day and focusing on your nutrition, having exercise time every single day. But in addition to that, also having time with your spouse or significant other or trusted friend that you're spending in focused conversation, not time just sending TikTok videos back and forth, which is not nothing, but at the same time, it's not a focused conversation. Spending time in focused time with your kid or kids. And so, that's not just coexisting on a practice field, or something like that. Again, those things are important, but it's not focused time with them. And so spending focused time, taking time to sit in silence is something that we're really big on, to take just a few moments each day and kind of have a reset. Spending time reading your Bible, all of those things are extremely important and create an environment and habits, of health in your life, that affect not only your physical, but also your mental, also your relationships, also your spiritual. Um, so I think this goes, just perfect right along with that.
Absolutely. It all goes together. And I love how you've established and developed this program and focused on those high quality connections and relationships. In fact, some studies show that it's the number one key to longevity. I'm not sure if y'all have ever talked about the blue zones, but it's something that I really love talking about. So, blue zones are places around the world where there's an unusually high number of healthy centenarians. So, people that are living over the age of 100.
Yeah.
There's 7 blue zones in the world. And when they've studied these places, they've looked to see what they have in common. Is there something that we can gain from these places that'll help us understand what helps them live such long, healthy lives? They're not just living long, they're living long and healthfully. And one of the Power 9 that they were able to synthesize it down into 9 principles is love and connection. And other studies have shown that these relationships, these connections are really a key to longevity. And I think one of the reasons for that also is because when we surround ourselves with people we love, usually those people are also helping reinforce other good, healthy lifestyle habits as well. So we're able to support each other in our pursuit of living a long and healthy life, right? And just sitting down, relaxing, talking with our friends. Yes, it's connection, but it's also a form of stress management. Often other things that we do together with our connections is we move together. So I know guys like to go out, they play pickleball, they go play golf, they're walking. So it's really interesting how these connections, they end up being related to all the other habits as well. So they support all the other healthy lifestyle habits that we have.
So let's go back to one of the things you said a moment ago. You were talking about different things to eat, like whole foods and things like that. What are some maybe some practical examples? I mean, we live in southeast New Mexico, and we love our Mexican food. We love it super fatty, and we love all of the things. And I don't think that and every region of the country has their own little cultural norms, and things like that. And so one of the challenges that we have, I think, is we really focus on cutting out or reducing sugars, and fatty foods and fried foods, and things like that, and eating more healthy, but
Less
what
processed.
right, less processed foods. What are maybe some just practical examples of some things that we can eat that's not necessarily eating a kale salad dry every day?
I love it. Well, one of the things I like to talk about is instead of focusing on what not to eat,
Mhm.
try to focus on what to eat.
That's good.
How can we include more of the foods that are health promoting
Yeah.
especially those foods that we know on average are super low in the standard American diet. So I'll start with the first one that everybody knows. I'm probably going to say vegetables. So eat more vegetables, and French fries. I'm sorry, it's not going to count here. Okay. So if we, let's try to eat more of these non-starchy veggies. So even if you're not going to focus on cutting everything else out, how can I add a serving of veggies to my meal? Some cut up.
So I don't know if this is still recording. We've lost you for a second, and hopefully we'll get you back. And if not, we'll cut it in post.
They like, I say start there. It doesn't matter. Just include more vegetables into your life. And then for the ones that I don't know if I like that. Okay, the first one that comes up is Brussels sprouts, right? Everybody has this horrible memory of eating like those canned Brussels sprouts from childhood that are like slimy and disgusting. Of course, nobody can learn these sprouts put into a salad with a yummy other toppings on there are so delicious. So just be open to trying new things, trying different ways. And just like we help kids learn how to like new foods, we are the exact same. We are not immune to the process. You have to try it multiple times. So don't just try it once and be like, oh, I hate it. I'm never going to have it again.
Yeah.
Try it at least 4, 5, 6, 7 times, different ways, different seasonings, cooked in different methods, and just start integrating it. And then you'll look back and you'll find, wow, I'm eating way more vegetables than before.
Yeah.
And vegetables are just a powerhouse of fiber, antioxidants, all the different colors signal different nutrients, different benefits. And so the more vegetables we can learn to eat and like, the better. So that's my first tip is include and focus on what you can add rather than what you can take away, because most people are receptive to that. It doesn't make them feel fearful, like you're taking something from them that they really love. So of course, vegetables, the easiest one is fruit, because almost everybody loves fruit. Kids love fruit. Children, that's one of the things they gravitate to. Include more fruit. Another one that I know y'all have access to in New Mexico is going to be beans. So legumes, beans, lentils, split peas, those are amazing. And as far as a whole food, it actually has the most amount of fiber per serving. It is one of the foods that is tied to longevity in the blue zones. So all of the blue zones have legumes. They all have some form of legume that they eat. And so we do think that this is a very special sort of superfood. And don't tell me you don't like beans. There are over 400 edible beans in the world. So just try it. So I would say start in those places and start adding as much as you can.
I don't think there are many people in Southeast New Mexico that don't like beans. So
Okay, good. Good to hear.
there are a few, but we load them up with, probably all kinds of things that are not supposed to be added into them. But so I've been seeing, and this may be just a really stupid question. I don't know, but I've been seeing on TikTok, and everything on TikTok is true. So I've been seeing a lot on TikTok in my algorithm, probably because I search these things. Some of the connection with gut-brain axis. Okay, so explain that to us, and it can be a credible source, not a TikTok source.
No, this is a real thing. I was really afraid of what you were going to say. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is coming up on his algorithm? Does he want to admit this?"
Yeah.
So, yes, this is so interesting, and research on what we call the microbiome,
Yeah.
which is basically all of the critters that live in your gut. So it's not just bacteria, but it's also viruses, parasites, whatever, all the different things that are in there that live harmoniously, hopefully, most of the time, not always harmoniously, but we're hoping that most of the time they're living harmoniously. And how it's actually a synergistic, beneficial relationship, especially if we treat them kindly.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to have a good relationship with this whole, flora, everything that's living there, we need to feed them fiber. That's what they eat. They eat fiber, and you can only find fiber in plants. So that's why I encourage making sure that people are eating more plants. So they eat that, they break down that fiber, and then they produce chemicals from that. One of the examples is going to be something called short chain fatty acids. And then that gets absorbed into our bloodstream and goes through our whole body. And we're just barely scratching the surface on this science. So we're learning more and more and more about how the gut microbiome supports us, but also if we aren't necessarily eating in a beneficial way, the opposite is true, right? So if we're eating a lot of ultra processed foods, which we know if there's one thing you're going to say I'm going to decrease, if you could just pick one thing,
Yeah.
it should be ultra processed foods, right? Because these are foods that can only be made in a factory.
Mm-hmm.
All the beneficial stuff is taken out, and we add a bunch of stuff that can be harmful to it, basically. So it's like a concoction of not necessarily beneficial things.
Yeah.
So whenever we feed that to our gut microbiome, the opposite is going to happen, and they can actually produce harmful substances that then get absorbed into our bloodstream. And guess where our blood goes? Our blood also goes to our brain.
Right.
And then it also has an effect on our hormones, and it just creates a whole biofeedback loop. And a lot of people, they don't understand that our brain is connected to our body. So the choices that we make of what we eat, how we live, it affects how we feel. And we want to treat our community here in our intestines with the best of care, and we want to feed them the things that help them help us.
Right. Right. So one of the things that I've been thinking about as well is as we go through life, situations change, circumstances change, things like that, and so um, age, stress levels, things like that. How does maybe some of the things that we need to be aware of just in our physical body, and then related to our nutrition, how do we need to adjust our nutrition if we say, okay, my stress is high right now, and I know that there's other things we need to do if our stress is high also, but or maybe I'm not sleeping well, or I'm just getting older, and I'm feeling the aches and pains of age, and how does all that correlate?
All right, I love this question. I'm going to start at the end,
Okay.
because I think that we're so used to hearing that as you age, things are just going to go downhill, and we learn to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we start to feel poorly, when we start to have the weight gain, the joint pains, we assume that it's normal and that there's nothing we can do about it, and that this is not true. It's not something that we should accept. And I want everybody to raise their standards for how they feel on a day-to-day basis. Often, what we don't realize is that our habits change over time.
Mm-hmm.
So as you get older, as you get busier, especially during the time when your kids are getting older. And we all complain about our kids being young and babies, but actually, as y'all probably know, as they get older, things get even busier.
Yes.
Like you have to drive all over the place, take them all kinds of sports things. And, there's so much to do. Then at that same time, your career usually is picking up, right? So you're putting more time into your career. You may have aging parents. You're putting time into that. And so what you don't realize is that you're becoming more sedentary. You're eating more processed foods. You're neglecting your sleep. And because of that, you're not feeling good, you're gaining weight, and you're blaming it on age. But
Yeah.
it's not age. And in fact, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, as you get older, your metabolism slows down. That is somewhat true. Mostly it's true because your muscle mass goes down, and your muscle mass is going down because you're not doing anything to maintain it or to build it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the change in metabolism is like 50 calories, y'all. It's not 500.
Yeah.
It's not a whole meal.
Right.
Okay? So even if it does go down by your muscle mass going down, it's minuscule. It's not justifying a whole meal's worth of
Yeah.
calories difference, right? So to answer your question, one of the biggest problems I see, one of the worst habits that we acquire over time with stress is overeating.
Mm-hmm.
Overnutrition is one of the worst things that you can do that causes damage to your metabolism. And I will say, as somebody who grew up dieting and developed a binge eating disorder and became a habitual overeater, it's easier said than done not to overeat. But I think that we should all strive to learn not to overeat. Overeating shouldn't be celebrated, it shouldn't be some kind of goal at every party because it's damaging our metabolism.
Mhm.
And that's what's causing this vicious cycle of not being able to sleep, of having the joint pain, of having the brain fog, and all of this. So, if there's one thing that you can focus on as you're getting busier, you're getting more stressed, your career is picking up, is to continue to focus on eating whole foods,
Mm-hmm.
foods that are rich in fiber and water, so that you feel full and satisfied. But at the end of the day, you're actually not overeating in calories.
Yeah.
And to learn to manage your stress so that you don't stress eat.
Mhm.
Because if there's one thing I would recommend is that people do not acquire the habit of overeating.
Yeah.
Because that's when everything just goes downhill for your metabolism.
Right.
You're going to develop high cholesterol, diabetes, all of these issues. One thing leads to another, and then you have a full-blown chronic condition.
Absolutely.
I think the one thing that you had said right there at the beginning was our habits change, and because we don't have time. And so because we don't have time, it's I'm driving through the McDonald's drive through to, to grab French fries and nuggets because that's what we have time for in between school and practice, or because I've got, I just got off of work, but I have work that I took home with me, and then we explain it away as, this is just a season right now, or, or something like that, but that season never ends. And so I think that one of the things that's been beneficial for us, and I'll say this because we're very transparent on here, when we're diligent to do it, is to do meal preps. And I know it sounds cliche, and a lot of times, and I hear people say this all the time, I don't have time to meal prep. Um, but the thing about it is, what I found in my life, and we found it in our lives, and we encourage people to do it, is if you'll take the time to do what's right, then the time becomes redeemed later. You're feeling better. You're able to be more present in the present. You're able to give your focus and attention where it needs to be. And for me, at least, when I'll take an hour or 2 hours on a Sunday and meal prep for the week, or on a Saturday, or whatever works into your schedule, not only does it help me to feel better throughout the week, to have more energy to do the things that I need to do and to be more present, but then also during that time, I throw on a podcast. I'll listen to an audiobook. Maybe I'll just spend time in silence and do what I'm doing, and allow my brain and my mental health to reset and to refocus as well. And so it's kind of a two for one, in that I get that time to reset, plus I'm preparing for the week. And it's super easy to we make these protein snack packs, where we'll have, some meat and some cheese and some fruit and some nuts in there. And And even, my son that's home, he loves those too. When my daughter was home, she loved those as well. And so we'll just have them in the refrigerator. And, instead of grabbing my son's on this frozen pizza kick, instead of grabbing the frozen pizza, he'll
He'll
grab
grab that because
that.
it's actually easier
Right.
than a frozen pizza
Right.
if we have it
All
available.
right. I have to interrupt y'all because I just am so anxious to say this. I'm assuming he's a teenager.
Yes.
Okay. So they have done studies on this, and they found that the number one predictor of what teenagers will eat is ease of access.
Yeah.
And this is something that I teach to my families, my parents as a pediatrician, is if you want your kid to eat healthier, you have to make it easy for them.
Yeah.
They're just naturally not the kind of creatures that are going to go and, okay, let me pull this out and cut
Yeah.
this for myself and put it, they're not. So y'all have already figured it out on your own, but that's completely true. But I think it also applies to adults.
Oh,
I
yes.
want to go back to the fast food thing too. I actually did an experiment once for my YouTube channel where I raced my husband. I sent him out to go get some fast food from the house, and I prepped a meal.
Uh-huh.
And actually, I finished prepping the meal. I was already sitting down and eating it before he came home with the food order.
Yeah.
So I think in our heads, it's kind of a myth that it takes longer. Obviously, if you're going to go do some kind of gourmet, multi-step, 20 ingredient meal,
Right.
that's different, but it doesn't have to be like that. And actually, studies show that the simpler you eat, the better it is for your health because you're less likely to overeat.
Yeah.
So yes, we can make gourmet meals on the weekends for special occasions, but on a day-to-day basis, you can use canned beans. You can use frozen vegetables and frozen fruit. They have amazing things at the grocery store, like pre-shredded cabbage and pre-shredded lettuce. You literally just take the things and dump it in a bowl,
Right.
put a little salt and pepper, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
It does not have to be gourmet. And it's a myth that it takes longer than fast food. I think we're just want an excuse, right? Like, yeah, I'd rather have the French fries and nuggets, but the time that you spend in the car going through and all of this stuff. And then, like you said, at the end, you're actually feeling worse. It's not helping you feel better. It's probably taking away your energy
Yes.
so that you can't do other things you want to do. But whenever you're feeding yourself health promoting food, it actually gives you time because then you have more energy. You have that, what my members say, motivation, which I say is just energy. Like you have normal energy to do other things. You go out in the backyard and do your weeding. I'm not going to do that. But if you want to do that, that's fine. So,
That's also my mental health time.
I love it.
No, I think that's so true. And I think that for me personally, it's such a mental load off when we've already prepared. And so if we'll spend a couple hours on the weekend when we're rested and feeling better, then I don't have to think about it through the week. And how much time do we waste? What do you want to order tonight? I don't know.
Yep.
What do you want to order tonight? And then we wait for an hour for DoorDash to get here.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what I want to cook. And so then we got to go to the store and you do all these things. But if you'll just spend a couple hours on the weekend, it will make the rest of your week so much smoother. And then I don't have to think about at the end of the day when I've had a stressful day and I'm tired and I just know my family needs to be fed. It's not a question of what are we going to eat? It's already there and it's prepared, or it's ready for me to dump in because I've already planned something easy. It will take so much of a mental load off
Yep.
of you if you'll just take the time to do it.
I know. And it does take a few weeks to get into the habit of doing it. So it feels hard at first.
It does.
But once you're used to it, it's not that big of a deal. And it's so gratifying to just open the fridge, have something ready to go, feel satisfied. And it actually saves you time cleaning up the kitchen because you don't have to take everything out every time for every single meal. You just take out your container that's already pre-prepared, eat your food and put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
So it's really easy in that way as well.
Absolutely.
Talking about the grocery store. So you had talked about how, they have a lot of things already prepared for you and, the shredded lettuce and things like that. But some of the things that we buy that maybe we think are healthy or are packaged as healthy are not healthy. And so how do we tell? What do we look for?
I love this question. And this is so true because a lot of people are misled by terms like organic or gluten-free. They just think, okay, that must be a health promoting
Right.
product. But it's really easy to tell if something is healthy because it's a whole food. It's something that you can pull off of a tree, dig up from the ground, leaves you can cut. It's something that doesn't come with a bazillion ingredients. Now, there are some foods that are a little bit more processed that can still be part of a health promoting diet, but in general, just like they say, and this is going to sound cliche too, you want to shop the perimeter of the store. You want to shop the fresh foods, the whole foods, the things that don't have multiple ingredients in them. They're going to have more fiber. They're going to have more vitamins, antioxidants, nutrients. They're going to be more filling. And they don't usually come in a package with a bazillion ingredients.
Right, right. One of the things that we've started doing, and I know not everyone, can have access to this, but we've started buying our meat as much as we can, buying it fresh, and you know what I mean, like straight from the rancher, straight from the farmer, um, and that's made a big difference in the way that we feel. Even the beef bothers you a lot.
Yeah, if I eat beef out or I get beef a lot of times from the grocery store, I have a history of some autoimmune issues and some sensitivities and things like that, but it makes a big difference. It will bother my stomach. And I know some of it's the way things are prepared when you go out, but at home we noticed a big difference. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this meal doesn't bother me when we're using fresh beef. So just things like that
Yeah.
have helped. I can definitely tell a difference in my body when I'm not eating processed things, when I'm not consuming a bunch of sugar. Like it makes a huge difference in inflammation, and that inflammation affects
Yeah.
everything in your body. So
Yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
a big, big difference.
I think it's really important for people to learn to trust their bodies and to tune into their bodies. A lot of people don't make the connection between what they eat and how they feel because they don't even think about it. They're not paying attention. But as you're very astute, you feel things. If you eat something, it bothers you, you have a sensitivity, you're able to tell that that's what's happening. You may not understand why that's happening, but you understand that there's a connection there. And probably more people would be able to do that if they pay attention. When it comes to meat, obviously there's a lot of reasons if people have access to it for them to choose things like grass fed and from their local farmers. First of all, it's just going to be more environmentally friendly. It's going to be better for our earth. It's usually going to be also more humane for the animals. But one of the things that's happening with processing of meat and animal products is that they put chemicals into them in order for them to last longer, to have a certain color, to look more appealing. And so it may not be anything wrong with the meat itself, but what's in it, what they have to wash it with, what they have to do to it so that it's not full of bacteria and germs by the time that you get it. And so for some people that are very sensitive, they may get symptoms from that. And so that's something to understand because a lot of people may not realize what's going on when they're having certain symptoms. And so in that case, it would be worth experimenting with meat that you buy yourself that's not going to be processed in that way.
And around here, just for our local audience, there's a lot of different places that you can buy fresh beef. And so you may not know that, but we've got a couple of places that we can suggest, or just as simple as put it up on Facebook and say, who has fresh beef, because a lot of people do. For pork, we get our pork from Firm Foundation Farms, and they also have a lot of fresh produce as well. And so that's a place that you can go.
Varies throughout the year based on what they're growing,
Right,
what they have.
right. And then we also have a new friend that is doing whole chickens, and well, not just whole chickens, but just chicken.
Whole and half.
Yeah, whole and half. So anyway, and we just purchased some. So we had lost our chicken guy for a little bit, but
We needed a new chicken hookup.
but we've got him back. But anyway, so we'll put some of those links in the podcast notes, so that if you're interested in doing that, you can go and do that. But I highly recommend it if you can have access to it, and really, maybe the chicken I think is a little bit more expensive than it is at the store. The pork and the beef is a lot of time, depending on the cut, but a lot of times it's cheaper than you can get at the grocery store.
Because you're buying in bulk. I mean,
Right, right, and it doesn't have all those added things in it. I also like, and I'll say this just as a note, and it's not a. I hate it that you have to make this caveat all the time, but it's not a political statement at all. But I really like some of the movement in our government to go away from the artificial dyes, and things like that in food because I think that is just maybe it's a I don't know, maybe it's a small move, but it's a move, towards health, and we don't need all that artificial stuff in our foods.
I mean, I think that's something we can all agree on, no
Yeah, right.
matter what, all the scientists, all the experts, everybody agrees on that. Everybody agrees we should be eating less ultra processed foods.
Right.
And that's basically an ultra processed food. If it's got artificial colors, artificial flavors, it's usually an ultra processed food. So that's something for sure we should be doing is having less of that. And I will say too, when it comes to meat, I don't think that it is necessarily harmful unless you're eating processed meat, which we know that there's evidence and there's science to show that that does increase your risk of chronic disease, including cancers. But you also don't have to eat meat every day. Like we talked about legumes, we talked about eating more plants. It's not going to be bad for your health to replace some of your meat with beans and tofu and those kinds of things. In fact, it can help your cholesterol, it can help your insulin levels. And so that's another way to both save money and integrate more plants and just have a happy harmony of all the different foods you like to eat that support your health.
Yeah. What about things like intermittent fasting?
Hmm.
How does that help us?
I'm a
Or
big
does it?
fan. So, and what I think when people talk about intermittent fasting, most of the time they're talking about time restricted eating. So, we know that science shows that having at least a 12-hour overnight fast is very supportive of good health. So, having 12 hours between your dinner and your breakfast, they've done studies on breast cancer survivors, and they've shown that the ones that had at least 12 hours in between dinner and breakfast had less likely recurrence rates. And so it is helpful. It's a good time for your body to be able to do its rest and digest, do its really deep cleanup, all the metabolic regulation that we need to do. It's especially supportive of brain health because your body needs a lot of energy to do that cleanup. And so if you're constantly eating, if you're getting up and having a midnight snack, your body has to redirect all of its attention to digestion because digestion takes a lot of energy. So you want to get out of the way of your body doing its normal detoxification, its normal metabolic cleanup. Now, studies have shown that doing time restricted eating and other versions of intermittent fasting can help support healthy weight. But there's no way that we can avoid the most obvious thing, which is in order to lose weight, we have to be in a calorie deficit. It's all about energy balance. Physics applies to every entity on earth. And so there's no magic calories that don't count. For most people, when they shrink the amount of time that they eat, they end up eating less calories. And so that helps them. But what I tell people is use intermittent fasting and use time restricted eating as a tool that you add on to a foundational good diet.
Yeah.
You want to start first by adding the fiber, adding the plants, drinking water, getting the ultra processed foods out. Start there first. That's really what's going to give you the longevity that's going to help you feel better. Once you do that, if you want to add on some time restricted eating and intermittent fasting, fabulous. That's probably only going to help you. But eating a poor diet, having your McDonald's and your ultra processed foods, but just limiting it to one meal a day isn't going to do as much for you as changing to a health promoting diet. You may have some benefits, but most people aren't going to stick with it anyway. And then they're just going to go back to eating their ultra processed foods 7 times a day, which is on average how many times adults in the United States eat per day.
wow.
Yeah. Um,
Did not know that.
in talking about fasting too, fasting is also a biblical principle, and in the church, we tend to focus on fasting being a spiritual reset. But I think one of the reasons why that God has instructed us to make fasting a part of our lives is because it's not only a spiritual reset, but it's also a physical reset. Sometimes we need that to to kind of restart things and to help us. And so I think this all correlates, and kind of to tie it as we're going into kind of the end of our conversation. In 3rd John 2 in the scripture, it says, beloved, and really that's just a term of saying, these are the people that I love. Come near, these are the people that I love. Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. This is a total health thing, and I don't believe that they're meant to be isolated, but they all work together, and that's kind of been the theme of what we're talking about today. I wanted to say this, in bringing in the mental health aspect, um, once again. So, for somebody that's struggling with anxiety, depression, I know um, that many times we kind of just throw up our hands and say, this is genetic and I can't do anything about it. Sometimes we rush to medications to help us, and I'm not against medications at all. I think there are times that we definitely need them, but I think there are also times when we could change just simple things about our habits that would help us. And so, for somebody struggling with anxiety and depression, what foods, nutrients, things like that habits should I start with?
I love this question. And you're right. It's multifactorial. Some of us simply have a predisposition.
Yeah.
And I think that some of us also just have more sensitive bodies that we're going to be more affected by things. But you're right. We don't have to become helpless. We don't have to feel like everything is out of our control. So if you're a person that, you're kind of reflecting back and you're like, yeah, pretty much most of my diet is ultra processed. I'm not sleeping. I'm not doing any stress management. I'm isolating myself, which is often what happens when we're depressed. All of those things are the opposite habits that we want to have. So if you're going to start anything, we know for mental health, depression, anxiety, leafy greens and berries are incredibly powerful. If you can just add one green power smoothie to your day that includes, I know you said kale earlier, blueberries, make it really yummy in there. And, that's a good place to start with your nutrition. And then start making sure that you're moving. I tell my teenagers 15 minutes a day, go out for a walk, especially if there's sunshine outside. That really helps elevate our mood. Just start with 15 minutes a day. Get to bed on time. Even if you feel like you're someone that can't fall asleep till 1, keep your schedule consistent. Go to bed around the same time, wake up around the same time, 7 days per week. Don't be jumping around everywhere. That really affects your circadian rhythm. And when we have a dysregulated circadian rhythm, it affects our whole body, including our mental health.
Sure.
And start reaching out to people that love you. There's a lot of people that want to support you. I know that when we feel depressed, everything is skewed and we may not believe it, but just make an effort. Connect with at least one person.
Right.
Talk to them on the phone if you can't see them face to face, but start connecting with people. And then give up those harmful habits, the vaping, the marijuana, the alcohol. Even though it temporarily may make you feel better, it's making it harder for you to recover from this
Yeah.
this period of time where you're struggling with your mood and your emotions. So that's where I would say that you can start. And I agree with you, Jason, as a physician, as somebody who's personally been affected by mental health issues. Sometimes we need medications to get through particularly tough times, especially if we've become very dysregulated.
Yep.
But that should not be in place of, it should be in addition to us trying to optimize our lifestyle habits, because it doesn't mean you have to be on those meds forever. And some people, there's a lot of people that don't want to be, but in order to be able to get off, we really have to do everything we can to optimize our lifestyle habits so that we can manage these ups and downs on our own.
Yeah. A couple of things that the scripture says to go along with these thoughts. Proverbs 17:22 says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries the bones." And I think that there's a really strong tie there to where if we keep our spirits high, if we are focused in the places that we need to be, then it's good for our physical health. But then on the flip side, if we focus our nutrition and our exercise and our physical well-being, then it's also good for our mental side and our spiritual side. The other thing here is 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 19. It says, "Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit that's within you, whom you have from God? You're not your own, but you were bought with a price, and so glorify God in your body." God gave us this body, and we're to be stewards of it in the best way that we know how. And I know that a lot of times, we weren't raised like this. I was raised on the more butter the potatoes have in it, the better. If I can add a little more bacon grease, then that's the way to go.
Cover it in gravy and it'll be great.
Exactly, and so many of us weren't raised like this, and I'm not saying to completely abandon your roots or your culture, and your heritage, but there are things that we can do to set the next generation on a little better course than we were set on, so that we can be better for our families. We can be better for the world. We can fulfill our purpose in a greater way. And so I think it's just so very important. Um, I, I wanted to give a couple of things that just kind of help me. I know not everyone is technologically driven, but for me, if I have the apps on my phone, I use the Apple Health app. I use an app to help track my sleep, called Rise. There's a lot of them. You can use different ones, but to me, it helps me to see the data, and to say, oh, I'm 4 hours sleep deprived this week, or 7 hours sleep deprived this week. I need to get a little more rest. One of the things that helps me in my productivity throughout the day is, and I don't know how it works. You probably have greater insight. I would hope you have greater insight than I do on that. But it'll show me like these are my most productive times of the day, and I've noticed that that's true. And so I have the flexibility in my schedule. I really try to schedule my highest leverage projects in the times when I'm most productive, rather than just being frustrated in the times that I'm least productive. I can't always do it, but sometimes whenever I can, I do that. And another thing that I use is my Fitness Pal, to help me track my calorie intake, my nutrition. Oh, I'm not getting enough fiber today from what I've eaten. Um, Maybe that doesn't speak to you at all, but if it does speak to you, those are a few tools that I use, to kind of help me out. Did you have something you were going to add?
Yeah, I was gonna look. I can't remember the name of the app. I just learned about an app that so I work for an anti-drug coalition, and I do a lot of suicide and drug prevention programs and things like that. But there was an app that I learned about because one of the things that we notice, especially in our students when we survey them, is they have a lot of big emotions, but they don't necessarily know how to label them to be able to tell you, I'm feeling this way. And it's literally just a check in to say, like, it'll remind you however many times a day you want it to. And you just say, yeah, this emotion is what I'm feeling right now, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it gives you the words to put with it. And then you can kind of track your progress and your ups and downs. And then you can kind of see, oh, I tend, like, for women, oh, I can see how that correlates to my cycle, or, whatever it may be. But I think things like that a lot of times we just dismiss, but they really can help you get to know yourself better. And maybe it's like we talked earlier about, I am very sensitive to what I eat and how it affects me, but I got that way because I started paying attention. because I was having a lot of problems. And I'm like, okay. So I started tracking what I ate and how I felt afterwards, and then looked at what the similarities were, or what I did differently when I felt better. And so the more we use those tools and get to know our bodies better, then we can better listen to our bodies and give ourselves what we need.
Yeah. No, very good.
I'll find out what that's called and we'll put that in the
in the-
description.
okay. Yeah, sounds good. Do you have any additional thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes, I really want to talk about. I know this has come up several times in our conversation, and it's about purpose.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people, they want to have a purpose, they want to serve others, they want to feel useful. And what's really heartbreaking is surveys show that only 5% of adults in the United States feel that they're living their purpose. 5%. And I don't think it's any coincidence that 60+% of Americans have chronic disease, 75% overweight.
Yeah.
We're not feeling good. And I think what's happening is because we're not feeling well physically and emotionally, we don't have the emotional or energetic capacity to even contemplate our purpose and potential.
Yeah.
And so for those people, because I feel like a lot of times, especially women, we have this feeling like we want to serve everybody else before we do things for ourselves. But I think that that's one of the most selfish things you can do.
Yes.
Taking care of yourself first actually raises your capacity
Yes.
to spread joy and love, acceptance, and peace to other people. Because when we don't feel good, we're actually resentful and irritable, right? And we don't have that ability to spiritually say, why am I here? What is it that I want to accomplish in this lifetime? How do I want to serve the world? We don't have the capacity. So start with yourself, start taking the time to line up your lifestyle habits. Take the time to exercise. And yeah, you can do it with your kids. You can do it with your family if you want, but it's also okay to go for a walk on yourself. When you take care of yourself, when you line up these lifestyle habits, it increases your capacity to love and to spread joy. And that becomes a ripple effect in the whole world. So this is very, very important work for people to do. And so that's something that I'm also very passionate about is people really start flipping this understanding of taking care of themselves and how it actually spreads to caring for others.
I love that.
I say this to guys all the time as I'm talking to just men in the community and men in our church, and that we like to say, "I'll do whatever for my family." I'll take on anything. I'll do anything. I'll work more hours. I'll whatever.
Lay my life down, whatever it may be.
Right. I'll do anything for my family, and we wear that as a badge of honor, as you should. But the thing that we won't do is something simple like change our habits. Will you take care of your body for your family so that you can be there for your family? Will you be a little uncomfortable and go and talk to someone about struggles that you're having, so that you can be present for your kids? Am I willing to do that? I would argue that's the hard stuff. Yeah, I'll go out and I'll work more, because that's how I'm wired, but will I do the thing that makes me uncomfortable so that I can be the best that I can be for my kids, for my wife, for my grandkids, because they need you and they need you to be 100. And so we've got to make those changes.
We talk a lot about
Good.
vulnerability.
Yeah.
And you lead your home with vulnerability, then your kids know that it's okay to be vulnerable. If
Yep.
you're open, I mean, if you struggle, I don't believe you have to hide everything from your kids. I
Yep.
don't believe your kids need to know everything either, but it's okay to go to your kids and say, you know what? I had a rough day yesterday and I didn't act the way I should have, and I'm sorry. And this is what I'm doing so that I can be better.
Yep.
And then your kids see that, or your spouse sees that, your friends see that, and they feel more open to be able to do the same. And
Right.
so in that vulnerability, you're actually serving the people around you, not just yourself. So don't be afraid of that.
Yep. I want to give a little plug. We're for our audience, as you know, we're doing in September a total health conference called Thrive. Health Conference. We're going to be talking about these things and more. Unfortunately, Dr. Yami is not going to be with us for that, but we do have a nutritionist from here in Carlsbad that's going to be with us during that time. And then we've got speakers on mental health and from the spiritual side and all of the above. And so you can sign up for that by going to thrivehealthconference.com and register. And the early bird rate is active right now. And so be sure you get in. All your meals are covered and included in that, and swag bag and all kinds of stuff. It's going to
And
be
we'll show you that you can eat good food and
That's
healthy
right.
food at the same time.
That's right. It's going to be a really good weekend. As you close this out, you mentioned a YouTube channel. How can they follow you, learn from you, stay in touch with you, that kind of thing?
Well, probably the best place to go right now is at the Dr. Yami on YouTube, but I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a podcast called I Am Human.
Awesome.
So if anybody's interested in hearing about my journey over the past couple of years with my own mental health and how I've applied lifestyle medicine, but also just a spiritual recovery from burnout, then I would go to I Am Human and check that out.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being
Yes,
on
thank
with us.
you.
We'll
This
have to
was
do
so
it
good.
again. I know we had some scheduling conflicts early, and I apologize for that, but I'm glad we finally got you on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a fantastic conversation, and I hope it really helps your audience.
All right. Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.